Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. I'm trying this again, although there's weirdness on the stream. If you can see me and stuff, let me know in the chat. I saw somebody just as I was killing the stream last time, so apologies. I did the intro better last time, but it's going to be a little messy. I was saying last time that I know I said I wasn't going to be back until Monday. But I got done work early and I came back and I thought, well, we've got to have a stream and hopefully a kitchen table talk today as well. So we'll try that out. And did I say it's Sunday, September 28th, 2025, and lots going on as usual, et cetera, et cetera. Ottawa or Obama is coming to be indicted possibly after James Comey, but there's weirdness around that. C8 and C9 are attacking Canada and our speech is under attack. Free speech is under attack. It's not very good. It's very, very bad, in fact. And I think that, it's doing the same thing as last time. I don't know what's going on, but there's something definitely going on. I should have checked to see if the audio or if the video recording last time was good. Shiza, I don't know what's up. Very frustrating. Anyway, regardless of all that, we're going to have to go on. January 6th is a hoax with proven FBI agents in the crowd. It's C9 and C8 are very underhanded. I don't know what's going on with the underhandedness there, but it's not good in the strictest sense, and we're being manipulated at a level I don't think I've ever seen. Canada's fiscal position is in real trouble, and we're going to start there. There's an ostrich farm update, and there's a COVID connection there that I hadn't realized previously. Greg was making that, alluding to that, but I hadn't heard anything about that. And digital ID is the biggest threat in the world right now. And we're going to talk about that. And two of us. I guess there's two of us. There's nobody watching on YouTube. If you can see me on YouTube, let me know. There's nobody watching on Twitch. There's nobody watching on Facebook. There's one person watching on Rumble and one more person watching on Locals. And man, I don't know if that's actually happening or not. And so it's weird. But I'm recording locally and I'll upload. And it seems like I should do that. Hold on. I'm going to check some things. It's working. Everything's working except the count. So I have no idea. Yeah, I cut the stream off. I'm sorry. That's all me. This is messy, and it's messy because things don't look like they're working, but I think they are working. The Rumble ad thing just got engaged, but it doesn't say that I have any viewers on Rumble. So I'm just going to continue as if I have viewers. I know I'm recording this. I double checked the last recording and everything looks fine. So apologies that it's so bumpy, but there's lots to get to, and let's get to it. And I'm recording, and this whole thing is not paused. And we're all good. So we're going to start with the fiscal uncertainty, and really, Canada is in dire straits. Our economy is in real trouble, and that's unfortunate. But I don't think anybody's going to be able to do anything to fix it. So Pierre Poilievre says, someone pull the fire alarm. Parliament's budget watchdog calls the Carney government deficits very alarming. Stupefying, shocking, unsustainable. If you don't change, this is done and something is going to break. And so here's some highlights of that. Here we go.
It should be very alarming, right? These are, I don't know, I think I used the words in French, and which the translators probably got really well. Like stupefying, shocking, right? This is not like it's not a funny fiscal outlook. It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable, right? Like unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done, right? So it's very serious. And I think as anyone who's managed a household budget knows, if you sit down at the end of the month and you don't have enough money to pay your bills, and it happens month after month after month, you know that something's going to break.
Crazy, right? And he's not wrong. You keep ignoring your fiscal responsibilities. You keep not paying anything at all. And okay, thanks for the confirmation, guys in the chat saying that it's all working. It doesn't look like it's working at all for me, but I appreciate the confirmation, really. Holly Doan says, alarming, stupefying, shocking. True deficit figure is $68.5 billion, 62% higher than predicted, according to interim budget officer Jason Jacques. So 68.5 is not $100 billion deficit. So that's some good news, but we had the art of the deal used on us. They floated a huge number, massive number, to head fake us. And now this doesn't sound so bad, but Chrystia Freeland quit over a $62 billion budget, right? And that was a huge, huge bit of news. And now they've made this into a nothing burger. And Jacques here has to come and say, listen, this is unsustainable. And they even try and say, yeah, but we're doing pretty well, right? We're doing pretty okay, aren't we? Are we doing okay? Where is that? Where he's talking about that? Here is the guy saying we're doing pretty okay, because Jacques says, that's his last name, says, we're doing better than other G7 nations. But imagine the better is the other G7 nations are 75% body fat and, morbidly obese. And we're 50% body fat and like morbidly obese, but we're not as bad as those guys. But we're still in a terrible situation that's completely unsustainable. We're going to die just like those guys if we don't change. And he's saying, okay, so we're in a good, what I hear you saying is that we're in a good position here. And then he tries to paraphrase, but I've seen it all. I've seen everything, right? Thanks, Captain Picard. Here we go.
Great. 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 10 seconds.
Okay, great. So another question, obviously. You project, so we're on a good fiscal path, or we're on a better fiscal path than some of our G7 colleagues. And you project our deficit staying under 2% of GDP and debt holding near the low 40% range. Would you agree that these kinds of thresholds are really in practice fiscal anchors that signal some discipline?
I would go back to one of the comments I made at the outset that like the most important word in the release this morning was unsustainable. I don't know. We didn't choose it carelessly. I've been in the office for 17 years. I was working in the federal government, putting together budgets for 10 years prior to that. You got to be you choose these words with prudence and care, and certainly we don't want to be alarmist. And at the same time, the current path we're on in terms of federal debt as a share of the economy is unsustainable.
Yep, thank you. Coming back to our credit rating, obviously it's a fairly internationally recognized standard in terms of how sustainable our fiscal position is. How does that compare to some of our G7 colleagues?
We, relatively speaking, again, similar to the fiscal metrics, we end up being further ahead or closer to the top of the group.
Thank you.
Great. Before we go to Mr. Gill, just to follow up on Mr. Gasparo's comment, I do get a royalty.
So unsustainable is the word of the day, and it is, I don't think it could be more clear. And yet they don't seem to care, and that's weird. That's a very, very strange thing. Tracy says everyone thought Carney was the magic money man to fix the disaster of the last 10 years. They were wrong. Jeremy says, stupefying, shocking. If you don't change, this is done, says interim parliamentary budget officer Jason Jacques about Mark Carney's spending habits. And we've heard that a couple of times, so we will just carry on. Here is, again, this is another minute, and they try to blame Trump. And he says, yeah, it's kind of Trump's fault, but it's more this fault of the spending, but it's kind of Trump's fault, I guess. And he walks that back by the end of the minute 33, but he starts by agreeing with him. And it's not helpful if we're in as dire a straits financial situation as they say we are, then that's a big problem, right? Here we go.
We're on the path to being in trouble. So that's what our 5-year forecast, the numbers that we released earlier this week indicate. That if left unchanged, the fiscal path that the government's currently on will definitely result in us being in quite a bit of trouble and having to make some hard decisions.
Now, in getting here, what do you attribute this to? Is this like Donald Trump's trade policies, the roosters coming home to nest, or is this about government spending priorities and not controlling it?
I think it's kind of a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. So there definitely is an impact in comparison to our previous forecast. You can definitely see the impact on the overall growth for the Canadian economy. A larger part of it is the government policy decisions. So there ends up being about $115 billion in net new costs since the last time we prepared a forecast back immediately prior to the election in March 2025. And a good part of that is attributable to defense. So changing geopolitical environment, priorities for the government to increase spending on defense, which we saw that was announced in June, earlier this year in June, and of course on the tax side, on the revenue side. So $6 billion a year, so about $30 billion over the next year, plus revenue that we're no longer going to have because the lowest personal rate went from 15 down to 14. But yeah, certainly a little bit of both, but certainly at this point, it's more on the government.
More on the government side, a little bit of both, a little bit of that Trump guy, but all the things that are really contributing to this are, our government's fault. Ryan says Carney just in 2 days at the United Nations Assembly has handed out $314 million of our tax dollars to other nations and programs, while 1 in 4 Canadians use food banks each month. So that's not good. $207 million in new international assistance for children's nutrition, climate change and biodiversity, $60 million to support multilateral efforts in Haiti, with $40 million towards international security efforts and $20 million to address transnational organized crime. This is being thrown. The people who are in charge of Haiti, who they're funding to the tune of $60 million, aren't in charge of Haiti. The person that I understand who's in charge of Haiti is the person who's in charge of Port-au-Prince. And that, I think, is Barbecue at the head of his gang. And he's got an agreement with another gang to make sure that they maintain control. And the people that they're spending the $60 million on, I doubt we'll see that money back. Right? Like I don't think they're even in Haiti, right? I don't even think they're in Dominican Republic, which shares a landmass with Haiti. I don't think they're even on the island. I digress. When I asked ChatGPT if they were on the island, where they were and what their seat of power was, ChatGPT was evasive with me. Over $47 million in new funding for the West Bank to Gaza to strengthen governance, judicial structures, economic resilience, etc. Why are we sending Gaza $47 million? That seems like a bad use of our money, right? And here's Mark Carney talking about this. Mark Nixon says Mark Carney is giving away an additional $47 million to totaling $400 million to Gaza. There's been no election there in 20 years. It's run by Hamas. What are we doing? What are we doing indeed? It's a good question. It's a good question that somebody who doesn't have anybody watching his stream would really like to understand. Here's CPAC, and they say Minister Jolie Lightbound announces, Minister, not Jolie, I'm sorry, Joel Lightbound announces measures to assist Canada Post amid financial challenges. We can't possibly lay these people off. We can't possibly make changes at this crown corporation that's failing to the tune of billions of dollars a year. What's the only thing we can do? Import more people and throw money at it. That's it. That's it. So they're just throwing money at it. So unfortunate for us. Very unfortunate for us. Kirk says the provincial budget in British Columbia is an absolute disaster. Tax-supported debt is going up by $53 billion in just 3 years. Debt servicing costs are increasing by over 300% in just 3 years. This is while people are leaving the province. So economically, not just the federal budget, but the provincial budget is also a disaster in British Columbia. And that's, not surprising, but it used to be illegal to run deficits in British Columbia. It used to be illegal to spend more money than they had. And so that's interesting how things have turned. And the debt service cost, so the interest payments cost, is increasing because the interest is increasing. And as our outlook looks worse, then the debt costs more. It's a vicious cycle. And so as the debt costs more, your taxes need to go up or your social programs need to get cut. And so this is a microcosm of the macro problem, right? Just in BC. And it's a big problem. And if you speak out about it, Keir Starmer will get you. We're going to talk about digital IDs, and I hope we can talk about speech, but we're already at 14 minutes, and digital IDs it's going to take me 20 minutes to get through this tab series. I hope I'm wrong about that. But fundamentally, they want to crush free speech. They're going to tie your digital ID to the free speech. You're just basically going to be throttled. They're already throttling me. I have 2 total viewers still all of my viewers, it's 2. And so Ted tells me that I have 44 viewers on YouTube. So I'm glad that it actually kind of is recording on YouTube. I'm kind of surprised that there isn't just 0 viewers on YouTube. But these speech laws, these digital ID laws, they're to combat the idea that citizens aren't behind these puppet leaders. Okay, that's the whole reason that they're coming in with the speech laws, because what they're doing isn't popular, and people are realizing that nobody wants this except for the people who are implementing it. And so if we realize that and overthrow them, then they lose their power. So they're going to try and remove the free speech that could lead to their overthrow. But in potentially removing the free speech, that may hasten their overthrow, because nobody wants it. It's a prison for everybody, right? Like you don't escape this. So no, I don't think anybody wants it. And hopefully Keir Starmer goes down and they realize that people will fight for this. But man, I've been disappointed before. But here's Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida. He says, a so-called digital ID is very 1984-ish. Hope our friends across the pond will reject this, a precursor to even more government control. Inside Paper says, breaking: UK government makes digital IDs mandatory. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have a digital ID. It's as simple as that. So here's Keir Starmer talking about this, and everybody and their dog are saying, no. Cross-party, everybody is joining hands and saying this is a bad idea and we don't want to do this. So Keir Starmer is maybe going to be ousted. But again, I've heard that before. Although when I heard that before, they really did oust Boris. They really did oust Liz Truss. They really did oust Rishi Sunak. So this could be the opening salvo of really ousting Keir Starmer. But if they oust Keir Starmer, all that's going to happen is another puppet's going to come in and he's going to say, I'm going to stop the small boats. And then he's not going to stop the small boats and he'll bring in the digital ID just like Keir Starmer did, right? So like changing the puppet is not going to fix it. Here's Keir Starmer.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict. And that is why today I am announcing
we're going to use the digital ID to tackle poverty and conflict too. We're just going to ban everybody from having any poverty or conflict. You're banned. If you have poverty or conflict, we cut you out of society, and then the stats look great. It's very Demolition Man. If you go watch Demolition Man and compare it to what they're trying to roll out, yeah, that's what it is. And if you swear, remember the social credit system? Spartan needed toilet paper because he couldn't figure out the 3 seashells, so he went to the credit system and the credit system printed out little chits for him. The unfortunate thing is no little chits, right? Not now. They just take it out digitally on the SQL database, SQL database, excuse me. Scott says, because the point of the illegal crossings was to justify digital ID. Darren makes the point, Donald Trump reduced illegal crossings into the United States by over 95%, all without digital ID. Why can't Keir Starmer? Because the whole point of the illegal crossings was to drive in the need for digital ID. Without illegal people amongst you, right, then amongst us, then there's no need for digital ID. It's very, very interesting. And here is Concerned Citizen, and here's Robert Kennedy Jr. talking about the digital ID system, and it's quite good. He kind of lays it all out. It's 3 minutes. It's a little long. I'll probably stop it halfway through, but the whole video is well worth it. Here we go. He says, do not comply with digital ID. It's a turnkey totalitarianism, which is where the title for today's show came from. Here we go.
What we're seeing today is what I call turnkey totalitarianism. They are putting in place all of these technological mechanisms for control we've never seen before. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian state from the beginning of mankind to control every aspect of behavior, of conduct, of thought, and to obliterate dissent. None of them have been able to do it. They didn't have the technological capacity. Today, the mechanisms are being put in place that will make it so none of us can run and none of us can hide. Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low-orbit satellites. Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day.
My new company, antispysatellite.com, will protect your home for a low $19.95 a month. It will shoot down every low-orbit spy satellite watching your house every time. It'll be powered by AI, of course. Hope that AI doesn't get hacked, right? You don't want a turret gun that could be hacked. Rupert Lowe says, and he's an MP in the... I actually don't have an anti-spy satellite company yet. But if they do this, if Bill Gates somehow gets spy satellites everywhere, I'm sure somebody will do this. Somebody will say it's in the public good to be able to remove spy satellites that are spy. I can't believe that anti-drone technology hasn't taken off yet. We're not inundated by drones buzzing over our houses yet, so maybe that's why. But at some point, I think there's going to be anti-drone technology. At the end of the show today, they're talking about big drone attacks from Russia into Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to be developing these anti-drone things. And then they're going to say, everybody's got to have anti-drone things. It's going to be a thing. I hope I'm wrong about that. Rupert Lowe again says, I will do everything in my power to fight this. He's talking about digital ID cards for all. Headline, Starmer to announce Brit cards to be given to all adults as part of government fight against illegal immigration. He says it's totally free. You can have, it's free. You're welcome, England. Free. And I think that that's insane. There's no way. If you had to pay, can you imagine if you had to buy the Brit card? Well, you know, of course you should have access to this, but it's £5 a month to have your Brit card. I think that's probably coming too. Rupert Lowe again says, as an MP, I will not comply with digital ID. I just won't do it. And I hope my millions of British men and women will join me. Send a message to Starmer. Share this graphic absolutely everywhere. I will not comply with digital ID. So this is one thing that I think our politicians in Ontario and Canada are missing: leadership on what to do. So Polyev says, vote for us and we're going to repeal this and do that and so on and so forth. But there isn't anything to do practically now. Give us money, sign this petition. There isn't really anything to do. Lowe's saying, I am going to stand up against this and I will not comply with this, and I hope you don't too. And it's not a tax revolt, but it's a similar kind of idea. This idea that the government is going to apply this law, impose this law, and people don't want it. And so here's a way to say, we don't want it. We're not going to comply with it. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to lead on this and I'm not going to comply. And so will the Conservatives do something like this? I haven't seen any kind of indication that they will. And so that's interesting to me. So I'm not holding my breath. Unfortunately, 23 minutes in already. My gosh, I was hoping we would get further. Here's Rupert Lowe again, and he says, there must be a free vote in Parliament on digital IDs, no whips, no party line, no pressure from Downing Street. This is too big to be imposed. Well, he doesn't understand politics. There's always going to be pressure from Downing Street. There's always going to be whips. There's always going to be a party line. That's why you should get rid of electoral parties. That's why we shouldn't have parties. Why are people voting for parties? Because you get the party's policies. You shouldn't. You should vote for people who represent your constituents. And then I don't know how you figure out prime minister in that situation, but we could figure it out, for crying out loud. Anyway, digital ID would be one of the most far-reaching changes to the relationship between the state and the citizen in modern British history. Every MP must be free to look at the evidence, listen to their constituents, and vote how they decide. Yeah, I think so. And unfortunately, though, that's not at all what's happening. Iob, who's another MP in England, says, we have our political differences, but this is something we certainly agree upon. And he's responding to Rupert Lowe. And he says, pleased to have organized this cross-party letter from MPs today outlining our concerns about Keir Starmer's plan to impose digital ID. I urge all MPs against this policy to put aside any political differences and come together in order to fight. This is bigger than any of us. And he lists certain people. And so cross-party lines are saying we don't want this, and we will stand with people standing up against this. Michael Schellenberger is responding to Silky, and Silky says it only took until 4 p.m. for the government to stay in time. The mandatory biometric digital ID will be used for renting, benefits, banking, age ID, nurseries, education, when voting, etc. They will not. These uses will not initially be mandatory, but likely will be made so after future moral panics, right? And so they'll say, this group of bad people is doing this, and so we need to use this to help save us from, for your safety, comrade. It's always the same lie. Michael Schellenberger says, and after the government combines your personal banking and voting data under a single digital ID, it will add social media and vaccine information. Same with Real ID in the United States. The censorship industrial complex was a dress rehearsal for digital ID. And Michael Schellenberger says, stop your creepy totalitarianism. It says how we're working to make digital ID a reality for everyone. And Schellenberger says UK opposition versus support of digital IDs is 45 to 42. Opponents should be able to drive that opposition number up significantly. It is absolutely essential that the UK kill two-tier Keir's plan for digital IDs before they metastasize across the West. And yep, I think so. But unfortunately, it feels like we have a digital ID here and it's being applied to my digital ID right meow. So that's unfortunate. Andrew says, Keir Starmer threatens that if we don't accept digital ID, we won't be able to work in the United Kingdom. Full Stalin after 12 months in office. Personally, I don't like being threatened. How do you feel about it? I think it's time he was out of a job before he does any more harm to our country and our people. And people are all responding to the digital ID. Nobody likes it. Tony Blair, who's a former UK Prime Minister, he has family who is QBing the digital ID technology. And Neil Oliver, the Coast guy, says, seriously? Samantha's reporting, no wonder Tony Blair wants digital IDs. His son is the owner of a company that'll be paid £100 billion to develop and monitor them. And old Tony has a $375 million worth stake in the company too. So, you don't want to be left out of your son's shenanigans, whatever shenanigans they may be, right? You got to get 10% for the big guy. Concerned Citizen says, Keir Starmer can't provide anything that resembles some form of coherent answer when asked how mandatory digital ID will stop people working here illegally. It's 1:40 and then we'll kill the stream. Oh my gosh, 27 minutes. Mark P. Here we go.
One of our viewers got in touch and wanted us to ask this question. Russ Brown wanted us to ask you.
Russell Brand, I think.
You really believe that those profiting from human trafficking will think, oh dear, I have to check your digital ID now. I can't carry on paying you £1.50 an hour to work in my sweatshop.
I am absolutely convinced that amongst the reasons that people travel through France, which is a safe country, to come to the United Kingdom, amongst the reasons is because it's easier to work in our illegal economy than it is in other countries. And we have to deal with it.
Bosses who are prepared to hire people illegally are not asking them for their national insurance card. So what's the evidence? What makes you think they're suddenly going to ask them for a digital ID?
We need to be really clear. You must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises.
That's a pivot.
It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in numbers.
But why do you think that them having
acceptable.
a digital ID, having to have a digital ID, would stop that problem, when right now people are meant to have a national insurance number and card, and if they're not asked for that, a boss is willing already to break the rules? What's the difference going to be?
Well, the difference is this is on point of starting, not a retrospective exercise as it now is. It is an automatic collection of the information by the government, so we know exactly who is working in our economy, and it will help us enforce the rules that are there. But there's no point people saying to me, why do we need it, when we all acknowledge there is a problem. People are working illegally in our economy.
The problem is people are arriving in England on small boats and they're being set up in hotels by the government. And now he's saying, well, the problem's actually people working illegally, and these digital IDs are going to fix that working illegally problem. And then that small boats problem will fix itself. Bull poop. Absolutely nonsense. We've got lots more digital ID stuff. We've got a banger of a show. I wanted to talk about free speech because they are coming for free speech. C8, you know what? I got to tell you about this before we go. Matt Strauss says you need to be very concerned about Bill C8. It allows Mel Joly to kick anyone off the internet with no trial, no warrant. Worse, you won't be allowed to say you've been kicked off. So if I go dark, everyone, because I can't quit you. If I go dark, I've been told that I can't be on the internet for some reason, right? And that would be a big problem. Like, that would be not very good. So they're trying to do this. And Matt Strauss, who's an MP, is trying to blow the whistle on this. He says, worse, you won't be allowed to say you've been kicked off. This is the Emergency Measures Act on steroids, only permanent and secret. And Darshan says, with utmost respect, Dr. Strauss, how is it a secret if it's a parliamentary bill or if a parliament bill? This is a sincere question. I may be missing the connection. And Matt says, Section 15.1.3, screenshot above, non-disclosure clause means the minister can order you off the internet and forbid any person from saying the order exists. So if in the future I reference this show and say, like, I'm blinking 3 times, this is what I'm talking about. If I just look at the camera and be like, listen, like, this is it, okay? But I won't be able to actually directly say this is it. So, I didn't mean to do that. So yeah, things are bad. If only we knew how bad they really are. And unfortunately, I have to pivot to the rest of the show. This is Palantir talking about how they want to desperately take over everything, and everybody will behave because they know they're being surveilled. No, absolutely not. The reason they won't behave is because it's half an hour. The reason they won't behave is because the justice is applied unevenly, and that's done on purpose, and that's not good, right? We're gonna have a kitchen table talk today. Looking forward to seeing everybody.